Well, welcome to another Right News discussion, and I'm here with my good friend Surit Dasgupta. So, how you doing, bro?
I'm doing fine, brother. How are you doing?
I'm doing all right. I'm doing all right, man. Yeah. So this is first podcast of the year, and it's been a long time, but
Hmm.
yeah, man. We were just talking about um anime, talking about like Japanese anime and like entertainment and everything. And I was trying to get your take on, like, first of all, you know, why there's why there seems to be, I think for the first thing I want to ask is why is there such an interest by Americans, like by American youth and like even millennials like us, um, and say and in the West in general for Japanese anime, right? And and what is it all about? Like, is it because is it because it's they talk about some of the anime talks about very mature things, very adult like things. Um, then there's kind of like this thing of like escapism. So that's maybe like a mental, hey, I want to escape. And then you got all these like, sorry to say, but you got like these weird ass characters.
Yeah.
They all look very, very, they're not human. Right. So
Yeah.
so I'll just say it like that. And while I do have my own interest in anime. Um, that's probably the only show that I probably ever watched fully, thoroughly in anime is Inuyasha, which is not, most people would say, like, first of all, who even watches that? You know what I'm saying? Like, that's a
Yeah.
1980s.
It's not exactly a trendy
Yeah,
thing, huh?
yeah, like a young teen, anime or whatever. But anyways, yeah, I'll just start there. Like, what do you think the sort of Western fascination with anime and all of that is, man? Where's that coming from?
Well, I we touched on that. Like, I was recently on a podcast with David
Hmm.
and a very uh, knowledgeable gentleman, Dr. Paul Axton,
Hmm.
and we were like generally discussing Japanese culture, but
Hmm.
we sort of like talked a bit about anime, manga, Japanese comic books in there as well,
Okay.
and uh, the general like the people who consume this kind of media in Japan are typically like the ones who are like after a like Japan is a very stressed out culture, right? It's
Hmm.
like it's totally like they transferred that bushido
Hmm.
mentality over into the corporate world, and the
Okay.
their
Yeah.
workplace and everything.
Yeah.
So it's like many of them like literally pass out working,
Yeah.
they totally. So it's like after like a typical day's work in Japan, people like to release all of their pent up emotions and all of that via consuming the anime or the
Yeah.
manga. So
Yeah.
like one example I'll give you. How in typically in anime characters are like rarely you'll see a character that has normal colored hair. They all have like very
Yeah.
colorful hair, right? They don't have black hair. Like a lot of
Yeah.
them don't. Like that's like
Yeah.
generic.
It's like
But a lot of
blonde or yeah.
pink,
Yeah.
purple, you name it, any color you are like that. That's where like a lot of that, like the thing where like you see a lot of leftist kids or whatever, they color their hair. That's where it comes from,
Yeah.
from the anime.
The emo kids.
Th-
The
not
emo
not the
kids.
emo kids, bro.
Uh,
Like
okay.
how in college campuses you'll see the people with like the radical feminists or whatever. You see a lot of them
Oh,
with
okay.
hair, or
Yeah. Yeah.
like
Blue hair.
with
Yeah.
nose rings and stuff.
Okay.
So
Yeah.
the hair coloring thing, like that, like in our like when we were kids, we couldn't
Mhm.
even see like colored green colored hair. What
Yeah.
the heck, we think there's something wrong with this. But now it's like a
Yeah.
lot of college kids are doing it. So that's
Yeah.
that take that from anime.
Okay.
So the reason for that is, why do Japanese anime characters have colored hair and a lot of weird hair, a lot of all over the place, weird
Hmm.
spiky hair, whatever, like, in Dragon Ball Z,
Hmm.
all
Hmm.
of that.
Yeah.
So the reason is that because in a normal Japanese environment, like, let's say, the classroom or the workplace, the cubicle workplace, right?
Hmm.
A presentation is very conformist. You have to blend in with the rules and regulations, right?
Yeah.
And
Okay.
I was listening to an interview from a Japanese teenager, and she had natural, brown hair, right?
Hmm.
Or dark brown hair, whatever. But she was bullied at school because of that, because she
Okay.
had her hair different from other people,
Hmm.
and because of that she had to dye her hair black so that she
Wow.
can
Okay.
blend into the society.
Okay. So
So
she was born with naturally brown hair,
yeah,
but she had to okay.
she
Okay.
had to dye it black because
Okay.
she would get bullied if
Yeah.
if people had like weird individualistic preferences, like a style. If you, in other words, you're not encouraged in Japan to stand out,
Right.
right?
Right.
You have to blend in with the group.
Yeah.
So what they do, how they get around that in Japan is, they went out all of their individualistic, like pent up individualism, all of that into anime.
Hmm.
So when you see anime, with all of the blonde hair, and all of that very European like features, sometimes, that kind of thing, it's like a
Hmm.
mirror, it's like a
Yeah.
mimetic opposite of what
Yeah.
actual Japanese society looks like.
Right.
So
Right. Yeah.
the psyche behind that is, Shannon, imagine you're in a factory and you're working your butt off. You're not,
Hmm.
like, you have very little room for creativity, but
Hmm.
whatever little room you have for creativity, you like write a story that you have gone off on an adventure on a far off island, dealing with mythical creatures and this and that, but you're
Hmm.
making all of that from a very claustrophobic kind of environment. So
Hmm.
this
Hmm.
anime is basically like Japanese people trying to free their minds from
Okay.
all of the stress, all of
Yeah.
the rigor of society.
The
And
sort of like conformity and
yeah,
yeah, yeah, they're
yeah,
they're they're you know, so this I'll share this with you and you tell me what you think about this. You
yeah,
know, if when you think about Japan, you were talking about the sort of the you know the homogeneity. It's very homogeneous. It's a culture that like recently there's been stuff in the news about, besides the fact that they just had a snap election and they have a female president now, or prime minister president, um, there's this idea that, you know, like you talked about work, the Japanese, they're they fixate on working, and they also, this is another thing I learned, man, is that like besides the anime, they also have a very strong drinking culture. A
yeah,
strong like if you this guy was telling me, he was like, in Japan, if you work in corporate, you know, and your boss asks you to go, he's not going to ask you, he's going to say, let's go drink. And you say you don't want to do that, that you can be like, you can be shunned. You know what I'm saying? Like you'll be ostracized. And they'll even go to the extent, now I just learned this, like they'll even go to the extent to where they'll make you want to quit your job for not being a part of the group, you know? So in other words, Japanese culture tends to be much more hive mind like, like all the bees have to be on the same wavelength. You got to do the same thing as the queen bee. All the bees have to do the same thing. And then you think about American culture, right, or Western culture, where it's all about the individual. It's all about my self-expression, right? And who I want to be myself, and this is my unique me, and everything. So so why do American kids like anime if they're all, why do Western kids like anime if we're already encouraged to be self um self-identifying and like we don't want to conform and all that. Does that make sense what I'm saying? If the
Yeah,
Japanese, yeah, if the Japanese youth are expressing themselves, or Japanese people who are doing these writing these animes are doing it to express their own individuality because of Japanese culture itself not being like that, what would make Western kids want to be interested in anime? Because we already are allowed to be expressive and be, like individuals and all of that. So what is the interest for, what do you think the interest is for like, yeah, for Western people?
yeah. It's a so you have to realize that what the kind of workplace environment in Japan, the kind of conformity in Japan is not really different from what many of us are facing all over
Hmm.
the world, right?
Hmm.
So your question about why would American kids want to read anime?
Hmm.
Well, it's because first of all, it brings like there's a lot of mental health issues in today's
Hmm.
generation.
Hmm.
There's a lot of issues that we can't even begin to list, right? Like
Hmm.
OCD, autism, those kinds of things. And
Hmm.
many Japanese kids also face the same kind of issue, neurosis, like all kind of like crazy, weird tics, like weird,
Yeah.
what do you say, weird kind of obsessions. That's why it comes across in the art. You were
Hmm.
talking about like this sort of, a lot of these weird
Okay.
characters. Where do they come from? Well, that's because
Yeah. Yeah.
that's like a reflective of the general mental health crisis in society.
Hmm.
So Japan
Hmm.
is
Hmm.
like Japanese culture is like a little bit microcosm of what the world is going through right now. They're not
Hmm.
really like
Okay.
what I'm trying to say is Japan is not really facing some kind of a unique problem in that sense, right?
Okay. Yeah.
Like they're also facing a problem with modernity or
Okay.
like industrialization, right? They
Hmm.
made the transition from agrarian to industrialization pretty fast, pretty quickly,
Yeah.
like the rest of the world,
Yeah.
overnight a lot of professions changed.
Hmm.
Like a lot, they were replaced by automated machines,
Hmm.
and as a result, like people have a lot of like a crisis, an identity crisis,
Hmm.
not just from the industrial revolution, from a lot of factors,
Hmm.
consumerism, all of these modern ideas that we're
Yeah.
seeing. So
Yeah.
they don't know, don't know what they are on this planet to serve, why they are on this planet,
Like a
you
purpose. They
know
don't have like a,
they don't have a purpose.
yeah.
So when they read something like manga, and it's like this is universal, this is not for
Hmm.
Japan or anything,
Okay.
like even American know this, like even our generation has this kind of
Yeah.
issue, right?
Yeah.
Like it's not just the young kids, it's like everyone in general facing this issue.
Yeah.
When we why do we watch television, why do we watch any art form? Is
Hmm.
because we want to escape into another world. We imagine that we are the
Hmm.
protagonist, or we imagine that we are this character or that character, and that
mhm,
sort of like reinforces a kind of like belief in us that we
mhm,
are here to serve something greater than what we are doing right now, you know.
mhm, mhm.
So there's
Okay,
escapism.
yeah, yeah, yeah. I mean, and then too there. I mean, there is the side of sort of the anime, which is talking about the characters. There is the side of it that you know uh they incorporate like Japanese mythology. Japanese mythology, and like some of the characters to take on like these um deified characteristics and stuff like that, and you have like what do they call it? Demigods, semi-deities and stuff like that, and creatures and all that. So, I could say, you could say like they're pulling from their culture too. They want to incorporate some of those things, even though Americans may not really understand that, at face value. You wouldn't associate it with that. You know what I'm saying? It's like you see this character who's got like nine tails and he's got fox ears. You're not thinking to yourself, oh, that's probably one of the characters from like ancient Japanese mythology, like a lucky fox or something like that. You know what I mean? Because, it's this whole thing of escapism, and everything. Now, I wonder what, you know, like the other side to this is that like there's been like we talked about this, you know, there's sort of interest or or something like that. This sort of interest in turning turning anime using anime as a way to um you know relate and stuff like that. Um and using those pray people in the Bible and stuff like that. Do you think that that's do you think that's promising? Like, do you think there's some fruitfulness to that, or is that sort of
Yeah,
just like a yeah,
I think there is. I
yeah,
think there
mhm,
is a lot of demand. Like what the things that we see on the internet are AI generated. Is the people themselves
okay, yeah,
who are making these things, and the fact that they are using these
mhm,
AI generative technology to create biblical images or clips or stories uh, proves that there is a kind of hunger within the general populace. Like
mhm,
there's a kind of hunger for spiritual truth, for spiritual purpose. And
mhm,
one of the things
mhm,
about modernity, one of the things about modern day culture is that it's shown us all how hollow we can be if we abandon a higher purpose, right? So many enlightenment
yeah,
thinkers
yeah,
or rationalists thought it was a good thing that religion is dying out and that people are finally going to think rationalistically, right?
mhm,
There is finally we're going to
mhm,
have like
mhm,
world
mhm,
peace or utopia or whatever. But
yeah,
that
yeah,
if 20th century and this current century has proven them how wrong they are. Like we were
yeah,
seeing like an increase of violence, increase of chaos,
yeah,
increase of
yeah,
all kinds of mental health issues, like
yeah,
total purposeless in society.
yeah, yeah.
So people
Because
have come
yeah,
to find out that that's all BS. You know what the Enlightenment thinkers were thinking and all of that,
yeah,
and whether they like to acknowledge it consciously or subconsciously, the fact is that people are hungering
mhm,
for something of a like a authentic spirituality or authentic religion. That's why
hmm
there's so many young people coming, especially men, young men coming into the
hmm
church, and that
Yeah,
too traditional churches, not like
yeah,
your run-of-the-mill pastor, this John's
yeah,
church or whatever, like they want
yeah,
to experience authentic religious, life, like
yeah, yeah.
and the reason is because they were going to church on Sundays and taking part in mass reminds them of how like the way of life is a
hmm
religious way of life, it's like
hmm
it's something to be worked towards, not like
Yes.
something you can passively just spectate.
Yeah, right, right. Yeah, that's the sort of I mean we both pay attention to sort of the religious zeitgeist, and this spiritual growth, this religious growth that is taking place, especially with young men, millennial and Gen Z, who really who are looking for meaning, and purpose and everything. And I mean, because and I'm sure you can relate to this too. I remember when I was first going through that, but that was back in, man, like that was back in, I feel old saying that, because I feel like I was doing that back in 2012. You know what I'm saying? Who am I? What's my purpose? And
Watching anime.
no, no, like reading the Bible,
Oh
like,
yeah, you're talking
you
about
know,
your conversion
yeah,
experience.
yeah, conversion experience. Yeah, yeah. You know, um, I remember doing that back then, and it wasn't, there wasn't a lot of, you couldn't relate to a lot of other men your age and stuff because they weren't there at the time. They weren't thinking about that. You know what I'm saying? It was more about like, what business school did you go to? You know what I'm saying? But now you see these young men and women who are really, you know, interested and very enthusiastic about it. Enthusiastic about their faith and and Christ, and everything. And I like there's part of me that's like I'm very happy. I'm very excited about that because it's a very good thing. But then you see this attempt, I guess, by by the secular world to sort of keep, you know, for lack of a better term, to keep men in the world, in a society where they're totally deprived of, um, you know, morals. They're totally deprived of, like, they want them to continue to be nihilists, you know. They want them to continue consuming, you know, uh sin. I mean that, that's the only, what I mean. And you could think about it like this, man. What was that halftime show that everybody keeps talking about, with the,
Oh, Bad Bunny, that
yeah,
one.
with the Bad Bunny, and everything. I mean, of course, I didn't watch it because, first of
Me
all,
neither.
I'm not trying to watch somebody whose name was Bad Bunny. Like, you sound kind of
Yeah, me too.
like that's ridiculous. But um, but you see what I mean? It's like, okay, you think that that we're moving toward in this direction where people are becoming more interested in the Gospels and in Christ and everything, and then you flip it around and, like, Sunday NFL Super Bowl halftime show is this guy who is all for, debauchery and, nihilistic behavior, degeneracy. And you know, you have people who are defending that, and it tends to be, and I'm not saying this to try and get on liberals, but it tends to be progressives. It tends to be
Yeah,
liberals who don't have a they may have some kind of spiritual, like whatever, but they're not Christian. Most of them are like spiritualists, or you know what I'm saying? They're into the mantras and the meditation and the gurus and or some ancient religion or something. So they want to do this whole thing. Oh, it's all about self-expression, right? It's all about um art being expressive. That's what it's about. It's not supposed to have some kind of um moral definition to it. It's not supposed to lead you to um it's not supposed to lead you to something that is transcendent. Does that make sense what I'm saying? Like
Yeah.
there are people who it's like it's art for art's sake, and that's okay. But my thing is like I feel like that's a cover for no, it's you're trying to cover for you wanting to be in a life of sin. You want to live a life of hedonism, bro. And you can just say that. You know what I'm saying? Just say, no, I actually just like this because it's chaotic or because it's it's degenerate, right?
Hmm.
Rather
Right.
than rather than trying to give it some kind of sophisticated intellectual response. Because the thing is that everybody, we talked about this, like it's like everybody's going through, a lot of mental, stress right now, and there's a lot of distortion, and we're having to, I don't like to talk about things like, it's a spiritual battle, like we're waging a spiritual battle and stuff like that. But it is, bro. That's
Yeah, it
you know what
is.
I'm saying?
Yeah.
Like, it is. So yeah, yeah. I'm rambling, but
No, you're right, bro. I mean, whether people like you said, like people like to say that this progressives, they like to say like it should be about expressing yourself or whatever art.
hmm
uh,
hmm
but it's not purely just that. It's always like whether as a if you're an artist and if you want to create something, it's going to have a message in there,
hmm
whether you wanted that or not. It's going to
hmm
have like your that's how your brain is hardwired to communicate. Like
Yeah.
if you like say if you make up like a movie out of pure dreams like David Lynch used to do, right? Like he would
hmm
make movies out of like daydreams,
Yeah. Yeah.
and like we typically tend to believe like oh, dreams just are there, like there's no message meaning to dreams, it's just like a bunch of mumbo jumbo, some conscious image or whatever.
Yeah.
But if anybody asked David Lynch
Yeah.
like is there a meaning to it, he would say yes, there is.
Yeah.
And if they and if anybody asked him if there were like any one meaning to his movies, or like are there multiple interpretation, no, he would say there is one meaning, there's
Okay.
one
Yeah.
objective meaning.
Yeah.
And of course, like it's a different story altogether to try to figure out what that one meaning is, but
Yeah.
there is always one meaning.
Yeah.
So moral relativism is a lie,
hmm
not because it's not because we would not like it to be true, but because of the fact that it simply isn't true.
Yeah.
It's
Yeah. Yeah.
like it's impossible. Moral relativity is it cannot exist,
Okay. Now,
right?
now, now, okay. Can you kind of like explain that a little more? Like why can't moral relative? Because sorry, I live in a very progressive part of the country. You know what I'm saying? And that's like a big thing, right? So why is moral relativism untrue? Why can that not be? It's like, are you saying that like, trying to have like some kind of subjective meaning in your life is not real?
All right, let's say moral relative. Let's say Shannon,
hmm
you're presenting the proposition that moral relativism is true, right?
hmm hmm Okay. Yeah.
What's the presupposition behind that? That something has to be true and something has to be wrong, right?
Yeah. 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 Yeah.
So what made you come to the conclusion that moral relativism is true? You understand what
Well,
I'm saying, right? I'm
sort of.
talking about presupposition, something prior
Okay.
to making a statement, right?
Yeah. Yeah. Okay.
That's a presupposition, something
Okay.
prior to making a claim, right?
Okay. So
So
okay,
how did
I'll
you
say
arrive?
yeah. I'll say the Bad Bunny, I'll say the Bad Bunny halftime show was moral and it was a good show. And I think it's like he's just expressing himself. I think that's cool. So that's my
Oh,
like
how did you
moral
come to
relevance.
that conclusion? How do you justify your claim? That's what I'm asking. How do you justify
Yeah.
your claim that uh,
That the Bad Bunny
Mr.
halftime show was cool.
Yeah, what's the
Uh
justification?
I don't know. I mean, I guess I want to say, I want to say, okay, well, because it was all about having fun. It was all about having a good time. Or
And how did you come to the conclusion that having fun is good? Like my idea is having fun is like I want to go on a killing spree right now.
okay,
You see what I'm saying?
okay, yeah,
You see, like the
yeah,
prior, like the justification, the epistemological justification matters, right?
okay, yeah,
Like, how do you arrive at that claim
yeah,
that something is good? Like, okay, let's say I'm saying smoking cigarettes is good, and
hmm
you're saying smoking cigarettes is bad. All right,
hmm
then I'll let's say I ask you the question, why is smoking cigarettes? Why is it bad? You'll say it's bad for your health. That's why
yeah,
you shouldn't do it, right?
yeah,
Then
yeah,
I'll ask you another question, like why is me being in bad health bad?
yeah.
Why
Well,
should it matter? Then
yeah,
ultimately you go back, you come like if you go back enough times
yeah,
back, a question before a question before a
yeah,
question, that
yeah,
before the claim, that kind of thing.
yeah.
If you do that enough times, you'll have to end up at a point which is objective
Okay, yeah,
and
yeah.
which is transcendent,
Yeah. This is the
and that's God.
epistemology, right?
Yeah,
Like what, yeah, yeah. How do
yeah.
you know that you know, right?
So moral
Yes.
relativists have to account for this. They
Okay.
can't,
Yeah.
because and like they'll say it's just good, it's self-evident. No, it's not self-evident. How
Yeah.
is it self-evident?
Yeah.
Like my idea of something, like my idea is Bad Bunny should be kicked off the stage, but that's self-evident. Or
Yeah.
what's your argument against it, that
Yeah.
kind of thing. So
Yeah.
this is the thing, and that's why this is what happens when a society or a culture, or in general, like if somebody loses is pushes away God,
hmm
this is
Okay.
what happens.
Yeah.
Everything and anything is arbitrary. There's
Okay.
no standard,
Yeah. Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
there's no
Okay.
there's no like a measuring like stick, like this
Yeah.
everything goes.
Right.
That's what Dostoevsky said. If there
Yeah.
is no God, everything is permissible, everything is permitted.
Yeah. 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 Okay. And so or let me ask you, why do you think why do you think there's such a, I know this stems from like, talk about the sexual revolution and feminism and all of that stuff. And then, you've got like new age atheism, with all those guys, Richard Dawkins and, all those people that, kind of like we grew up with in the early 2000s, and stuff. But why do you think there was such a push for that if it led to all of this, if it led to this point where like, you know, our generation and the generation after us and everything, I mean, are so we were deprived. We were
Yeah.
deprived, and this, I'm not saying this to like sound upset or blame the boomers, okay? But you
Oh, those boomers again. Shannon can't keep himself away from the boomers. Oh my
okay,
goodness.
or I'll say, okay, blame the boomers and the Gen Xers, okay? I blame them both.
Oh, the Gen Xers have now joined in. All right.
No, but what was the if this was the result, right? If this was the result of all of this, why did it take us so long to figure out that maybe we need to do a little course correction, right? Or like how they say in the church, ad orientem, right? Isn't that what is it? Ad orient,
Yeah,
like a re, you know,
reorientations. Yeah,
reorientation. Sorry, yeah, reorientation. Why? Yeah, why did it
yeah.
take us so long to do all this, man? You know?
Well, I mean, where human nature is pretty self-destructive at times,
Hmm.
and people tend to be mimetic. You
Hmm.
know,
Hmm.
like if something is going wrong in society, or if there's something like if there's something like if there's a personal loss, right, or like even societal loss, or there's something very bad, like let's look at like the early 20th century, right?
Hmm.
One of the reasons that's being told for the fall or like the decrease of Christianity in the West is
Hmm.
because of the world wars. So many people died, and
Yeah.
this and that. So that's like many people started to question if God was real. Then
Hmm.
why did so many people die?
Hmm.
Why did so many innocents have to die?
Hmm.
And of course, like there's a very clear answer to that, uh, but most people don't have that kind of clarity,
Yeah.
right? Like
So
if
what?
somebody
Yeah.
came up and asked us,
Yeah.
why did so many people die? We would
Yeah.
say, well, it's because we turned our backs against God.
Yeah.
We were not supposed to strike our fellow human beings.
Yeah. Yeah.
We forgot that. We
Yeah.
forgot that Jesus gave us a non-violent teaching, not
Hmm.
a warlord kind of teaching.
Hmm. Hmm.
But we
Yeah.
didn't take that seriously. Therefore, we committed all of these crimes,
But
and
but
so
but
on.
okay, but sir, but see, here's the thing, man. Like, okay, like, okay, the world wars and everything, you know what I'm saying, with the great generation and all that, silent generation. Okay, then the boomers come and they're born and they have this kind of like reactionary thing going on. It's like, well, like you talked about this a couple times before, but it's like, a lot of people's fathers had went off to war and died, so there was a lack of fathers fathers. A lot of the wars, brought a lot of trauma, mental, PTSD and trauma and addictions, and everything. So that's understandable, right? But the flip side of that is that the boomers didn't, they question, they say, okay, well, if Christ is supposed to be our love and everything, why do we have all these wars? But they're the generation that everybody remembers for being flower power and peace, and you know what I'm saying? But they're also the generation that everybody remembers for being hedonistic, right? Hedonistic, nihilistic, like sex crazed, insane. I mean, not, you know what I'm saying? Just not traditional. And that led to, you know, that didn't lead to peace. You know what I'm saying? Like,
It led
it,
to more violence. It led
yes, that's
to
what I'm trying.
in
Yeah, that's what I'm.
70s, the 60s and the 70s were known for like riots, race
Yeah,
riots, and Black Panthers.
right,
Weather
right.
Underground, and this cult, Jonestown cult,
Yep, yep,
and
yep.
the crazy, like insane insanity, like death, insanity, obsession with death.
Yes, and
And
chaos.
LSD chaos. All
Yes,
over the place.
right. So if that's what it led to, then how could they say they were bringing more peace and stuff? You know what I'm saying? It's like actually they just made it more worse.
Because it's the same, it's connected with moral relativism.
Okay.
It's the same thing, because what does peace mean? How
Yeah.
do we measure peace,
Yeah.
right? What's the
Yeah.
standard for peace?
Hmm.
Now, as Christians, we have a standard for peace. It's
Hmm.
Jesus Christ,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
What Jesus taught.
Yeah.
Jesus said, turn the other cheek when someone strikes you, when someone gives you a burden, carry it an extra mile.
Hmm.
That's how we bring in peace,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
And it's also described in the prophets, like the lion shall lay down with the lamb,
Yeah.
and they shall
Yeah.
forge their swords into plowshares, that
Yeah.
kind of thing.
Yeah.
But when you have a generation like the boomer generation, which
Hmm.
is mimetic towards traditional forms of religion,
Hmm.
and which is mimetic towards objective truth,
Hmm.
which is mimetic towards conservative life,
Hmm.
when you
Hmm.
have that kind of thinking, they'll say, yeah, sure, peace, we want peace, we want peace, but we don't want the peace that's in the Bible.
Yeah.
We want the peace that's everywhere else, because they're
Right.
mimetic.
Yeah.
They're
Yeah.
mimetic
Yeah.
towards
Yeah.
the Bible. So
Right.
what happens
Okay.
when you're mimetic towards something? You try to come to the same objective uh, that your rival has,
Right.
right?
Okay.
Let's
By
say, Shannon,
okay.
you and I have the same, you and I are mimetic rivals, right?
Hmm. Hmm.
So what would make us mimetic rivals? The fact that we both have the same desire, we both
Okay.
have the same object,
Yeah.
we both desire the same object.
Yeah.
So what did Christianity desire? What did Christian culture desire? Peace,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah. Yeah.
The boomers, when they are reacting mimetically towards that culture, they're also going to desire peace,
Okay.
right? So, but they're going to want to differentiate themselves from the rival,
Okay.
right?
Okay.
That's why they'll say, we're not Christians though, right? We're not
Yeah.
Christians. We're into the Buddhism or
Yeah.
whatever,
Yeah.
tantric or whatever, we're
Yeah.
into that.
Yeah.
So we're going to try to achieve peace through that.
Yeah. And
And we
the black
saw,
people want to be voodoo worshipers. You know what I'm
yeah,
saying?
yeah,
Or
exactly.
yeah, you know what I'm saying?
Yeah, let's ignore like hundreds of years of black culture infused in gospel,
Yeah.
right? The gospel
Yeah.
singing, and let's ignore all of that and go
Right.
straight into the voodoo thing,
Right. 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 Or the
because we're
Nation of
mimetic
Islam.
towards, yeah,
Yep. Yep.
that's what all the black exploitation movies were about.
Hmm.
They were
Okay.
about desiring liberal objects, right?
Yeah.
Liberal objectives.
Yeah.
That's
Yeah.
why in Blackula you see the voodoo stuff. That's
Yeah.
why, like in like Shaft, on all of
Yeah.
these movies, Black Caesar, it was about getting the girl, getting
Yeah.
all of that,
Yeah.
the American dream,
Yeah. Yeah.
so
Yeah.
it's but the black version of it, right?
Right.
So
Right.
you see how mimetic culture works,
Yeah.
mimesis in culture works.
Yeah.
That's why you have all of these chaos, all
Yeah.
of these hedonism,
Yeah.
because the Bible knows about mimesis. The
Yes.
Bible knows about how you can fall into rivalry
Yeah.
with another person.
Yeah.
That's why the Bible has, a blueprint or a well desired, like well structured path towards
Yeah.
achieving peace.
Yeah.
So how,
Yeah.
like for example, if you come to a Hindu society,
Hmm.
right?
Hmm.
They want peace too. They
Hmm.
want peace. The Muslims also want peace,
Hmm.
but how do they achieve that peace?
Okay. Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
Does it involve forgiving the one who has wronged you, or does it involve persecuting somebody, or does it
They was well,
involve like
they would,
subjugating somebody?
yeah, they would argue though, they would say that's justice on the one hand, and two, they would say God wills it that way,
Well, that's
right?
to
We're
my
just
point.
administering. Yeah,
That
we're just
that's
in,
that's to Yeah,
yeah,
that's to my point. That
yeah,
doesn't That's actually arguing for my point position.
yeah,
You
yeah,
see,
yeah.
because what they call justice, we call mob violence,
Mm-hmm.
we call
Mm-hmm.
lynching,
Mm-hmm.
right?
Mm-hmm.
That's what Jesus tells us.
Yeah, yeah,
So
yeah,
Jesus, what does the crucifixion say? The crucifixion says that you can't punish an innocent person
yeah,
in order to bring peace. to
Yeah.
society.
Yeah. Yeah.
That's
Yeah.
that's the ultimate deconstruction of the gospel.
Yeah.
But the world and all of its other variety of cultures, paganistic or whatever, they all say that no, that is justice.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
That's why in Western civilization, which is infused with Christianity,
Mm-hmm.
or in other Christian societies, you will see a clear differentiation between what's justice and what's vengeance.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Because because collective punishment, like let's say collective punishment, somebody of your family did something wrong, that therefore your family has to be wiped out. That's not
Mm-hmm.
something that's entertained in Western cultures, whether they're atheist or not,
Yeah.
whether they're Christians or not.
Yeah.
That's like a Christian infection in the society, right?
Yeah. Yeah. That like that's unthink that would be totally unthinkable to do.
Yeah,
Yeah. 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 Yeah.
because in Hinduism, peace means destruction of the self,
Mm. Okay.
destruction of your identity,
Yeah. Okay.
self
Okay.
self destruction. That's what moksha means.
Okay.
When you're like breaking out of the cycle of
Mm-hmm.
life and death, life and
Mm-hmm.
death, life and death,
Mm-hmm.
when let's say you've attained like
Nirvana or something.
nirvana or whatever,
Mm-hmm.
that's what is that, that's destruction of your ego. They call it the ego, and merging with the super ego.
Mm.
The
Okay.
super ego is like the demiurge, right?
Okay.
The demiurge is like many, and even atheists make this mistake, even Christians make this mistake.
Mm-hmm.
Like people often imagine that God is some in the system, or like without personality, like a
Mm-hmm.
merging of a lot of things, like completely void of personality,
Okay.
doesn't
Okay.
have personhood, right?
Right.
Doesn't have
Right.
an identity.
Right.
That's like the demiurge. That's
Okay.
what the Gnostics worship,
Okay.
right?
Yeah. Yeah.
So,
Like a God that is
like a blob, a
okay.
giant
Yeah.
spiritual blob,
Yeah.
you
Okay.
know,
He's not
like
really
you,
involved in like human affairs or anything. He just
yeah,
yeah.
totally disinterested
Yeah.
in corporal matters, totally
Okay.
disinterested in material things.
Yeah.
And when we are when we are free, we're supposed to like merge into that,
Hmm.
and that's it, the eternal like merging. No
Okay.
personality, no nothing.
Yeah.
But
Okay.
Christianity, our version of heaven,
Hmm.
or like the kingdom of God, or whatever you want to call it,
Hmm.
we're not destroyed. Our personality will still be intact, our
Hmm.
memories will still be there,
Hmm.
you
Hmm.
know
Yeah.
our loved ones will also be there. We will
Yeah.
be able to interact with our loved ones. So
Yeah.
that's the difference.
Okay.
That's how,
Yeah.
like, in order to protect, in order to conserve and protect a society,
Yeah.
you have to protect the human person.
Yeah. Hmm.
But if you get rid of that person, it doesn't matter what you're trying to achieve, peace or whatever, freedom, whatever it, you'll always be self-destructive.
Yeah. Yeah. That's a that's an interesting.
But it's also connected to the Japanese thing that you
Hmm.
spoke about, right?
Hmm. Hmm.
It's also connected to that,
Hmm.
because the Japanese have a problem acknowledging personality,
Hmm.
acknowledging personhood,
Yeah.
that a person has his own kind of uniqueness in the
Hmm.
image of God, right?
Hmm. Hmm.
That's why they force everybody to conform,
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
And that's why anime, like the anime thing, is like anime is nothing but the Japanese hunger for Christ.
Uh,
What
okay.
I mean by that is, they don't know Christ, right? They don't know what Christ is. They don't
Right.
know his history and all of that. They don't know the Bible,
Right.
but their soul knows it.
Okay.
Their
Okay.
soul knows it,
Yeah.
and the soul is yearning for that. They're acknowledging, they acknowledge
Mhm.
the person,
Yeah.
acknowledge the individual,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
that's why anime is so bizarre, so
Yeah.
crazy. It's
Yeah.
like crying out
Yeah.
from the wilderness.
That's interesting you say that, man, because I was thinking about I was trying to like relate that to something else, and this is the other one, which is much more ancient. No, what am I saying? It's not much more ancient. It's ancient, right? It's an ancient culture, but it's gone. It's been whatever, Christianized or whatever, and that's the Mesoamerican culture, like the Mayan, the Aztecs, you know, and all the other groups, Tlaxcalans and those groups, they, I'm sure you're aware of this, they had human sacrifice, and that was you know, they saw the world in a cyclical way. Yeah, I mean, this. So, the thing is that it's the same thing. Like they were because they kept doing that, and they used to do this, man. They were sacrificing people in the thousands in just like a matter of days. You know what I'm saying? But they thought that that was normal. They thought that was normal. And the thing about
Yeah,
it is the reason why somebody was saying this, and I don't remember who it was, but it was a series on Our Lady of Guadalupe, and I don't remember which person it was, but anyways, they were saying that for them, they were looking for truth, and they thought that by doing that ritual, they were finding truth. They
yeah,
wanted to, they were looking for peace.
yeah.
Like you talked about, and so for them that was normal. No person in this day and age would say that's normal. No one would say, "Oh, well, that's the way society was run," and I can understand, you know what I'm saying? Like, no one would say that. And the reason why no one would say that is because there's a Christianity has been infused there. So we
But
find that as repelling, you know what I'm
so
saying? Or repulsive.
to,
Yeah.
to offer a pushback, some prominent or maybe like higher
Hmm.
academic kind of people,
Hmm.
they do think that that is normal, by the way. Like one
Oh,
example I'll give you. Have you heard of this fellow called Yuval Harari or something?
yes,
I
yes,
remember
yes,
that guy.
yes. Yeah, yeah.
So he
Jewish
like
historian, Israeli
yeah,
historian. Yeah.
yeah, he was saying that all of these things are just stories, like he was talking about like the the objective standard behind morality,
Hmm.
and these are just stories, they just fables, like
Hmm.
nothing really that kind of matters,
Yeah.
so
Hmm.
he actually, like, that's the kind of person, and there are many more like him. Those kind of people would have no problem saying that, yeah, sure, that's their way of existence.
Mm.
Who are you to say they're wrong or they're right?
Okay. Yeah.
I'm sure you came across some of these guys.
Oh yeah.
Like,
Yeah.
of course, large majority of people would say what you just said,
Yeah.
like, like, because of the Christian influence, the influence of Christian ethics, Christian morality into the culture.
Yeah.
But some people are, you have to acknowledge that some people are just they just desire evil,
Yeah. Yeah.
they don't want anything but evil.
Yeah. I mean, I guess my thing is that I just like we could understand, just like a person could understand why young people or whatever, are into anime, right? Because they really want to have a relationship with Christ. They just maybe don't realize that. I would say it's the same thing for the Aztecs, for the Mexica. Like they really wanted to have a relationship with Christ, but they didn't understand. That's the way I think of it. It's like they didn't understand. So so my thing is like, okay, I wouldn't judge the culture, in the sense that like I would say they were, savages or something like that, because that's how they understood their world, view. But I would also say it's evil. That would be my thing. In the day, it's evil.
In other words, you're saying you would not judge them, but you would judge them.
Yeah, yeah,
Yeah.
yeah.
So
I
yeah, I
mean,
mean, there's no
you know,
like, but you can't escape judging anybody, bro. That's the
right.
thing. Because a lot of people say we can't judge, but we have to judge. I
Yeah,
mean, like
yeah,
if let's say if there's a serial killer living next door,
yeah.
I don't know who's to say, like, I don't want to be judging him or anything. No, he's a serial killer. He's gonna kill you. So
Right, right, right.
you're actively making a judgment there, whether it's
Yeah.
to like condemn. A lot of people mistake judging for like condemning that person,
Okay. Okay. Yeah.
and but it's really like judging people basically means, in the general sense, it means like giving a label to that person, which will
Hmm.
allow you to either retreat for your survival or to take action to stop that person,
Okay.
or to
Okay.
even be a to even be a passerby. You can't help but judge,
Right.
so in
Okay.
that sense, sure, like we can to see what you're saying there, Shannon, is sure we can see from a certain perspective that yeah, that they were ignorant, they
Yeah.
didn't know about right and wrong, and
Yeah.
in that sense they carried out their sacrifices,
Yeah.
in
Hmm.
that sense, yeah, it's understandable.
Hmm.
But at the same time, you being a Christian
Yeah.
means that you have to actively point
Yeah.
out that something is right and something
Right.
is wrong.
Right. Yeah. Yeah. And that's another thing, I mean, and we can get into this, sometime later because we've been talking for a while, but I there is this whole thing of like you know, uh, Europeans, there's this thing where, it's like, well, the Spanish came, the conquistadors came, and they destroyed the civilization, and they, did all this stuff and changed the way that the Mesoamericans lived and blah, blah, blah. And, some people will be like, they should have, you know what I'm saying? They should have because those people needed to be, they needed a spanking. You know what I'm
Yep.
saying? I mean,
Yeah.
I mean, they needed a spanking because it's
Well,
their,
I mean, it's like we're not pacifists here, right?
yeah,
If
yeah,
somebody is harming another person, we have to stop them,
yeah,
and that's what the conquistadors did.
yeah,
Now, I'll be honest, I don't know that much about that period of history.
yeah, yeah.
Like some people some people say that Cortez
Hmm.
like killed even more people than
Hmm.
I personally find that hard to believe, but some
Hmm.
people do say that he kind of like killed more
Hmm.
Aztecs or Mayans
Hmm.
than the sacrifices or whatever.
Hmm. Hmm.
I personally I find that hard to believe. I don't think that's true, but
Yeah,
it could be possible. I'm not
yeah,
saying it's not. It could be possible. People
yeah,
do get carried away when they're like on a righteous path or righteous
yeah,
crusade or something. That
yeah,
happens. People
yeah,
do get carried away. It's just the nature of violence.
yeah, yeah,
Like people do get carried away with bloodlust with
yeah,
when they're on a crusade or whatever, right?
yeah, yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah,
but at the
like being a
same
zealot
time,
or something. Like being a
yeah,
zealot. Yeah, yeah.
yeah,
Hmm.
people do
Hmm.
get do become zealots.
Yeah.
It's like history is such a complicated and nuanced thing, but one thing is for certain, that you can't say that uh, there could be like when you go to South America right now,
Hmm.
and there's like sure there is I'm sure there's a lot of like prejudice or class distinction or whatever,
Hmm.
but on the whole, on a larger scale, on a larger metric, there's a much more unity, much
Hmm.
more racial harmony. Like
Hmm.
the entirety of the South American population is like a result of Indian and Spanish in mixing.
Yeah. Hmm. Hmm.
So would that have been possible if the Aztecs still went on killing and went on conquering, like the whole of like the revolutionary ideas that sprang up in South America, the liberation theology and all of that, the
Yeah,
stand up for the vulnerable, stand
yeah,
up for the marginalized.
yeah.
Would that have been possible if the Aztecs and the Mayans, if Cortez left them to their own devices? I
They
highly
would.
doubt that. So here's the thing. A
Yeah.
lot of like this is the weird contradiction that a lot of progressives make. Progressives are very influenced by liberation theology
Yes.
and Marxism and all of that. Like you
Yeah.
see a lot of these South Americans, they're heavily into Marxism and all of
Yeah.
that. What
Yeah.
would Marx have done if he came across those Aztecs and those Incas sacrificing there?
Right.
Would he have done anything other different than what Cortez did?
Right. Yeah. He probably
So
would have. He probably would have ran and got back on the boat.
yeah, I mean, he didn't have an army. Let's assume he had an army. Okay, let's
Yeah.
assume he had a bunch of like Bolshevik kind of red,
Yeah.
army.
Yeah.
What would
Yeah.
he have done? Would he have said, "Oh, leave them to their own devices.
Yeah.
Their oppression is different from capitalism or whatever."
Uh,
That's not what he would have done. That's
yeah.
because Marxism and everything is influenced by
By
is
the gospel.
isn't by the gospel.
Yep.
Like
Yep. Yep. And that's a lot of. That's something that a lot of people don't don't know. And I think it's a lot. It's something that a lot of academics try to um, sweep away. Right? They don't want to say that communism and socialism is actually just a just a cherry picking of the gospels. The
yeah,
same way that capitalism is a, is a cherry picking of the gospels. Like we
yeah.
all,
Both are
do that. Yeah.
like Marxism borrows the concern from for the marginalized, the concern for the victims from it,
Yeah.
from the
Yeah.
gospel. And capitalism borrows the upward mobility thing from the gospel, that you are
Hmm.
not, that your ancestral lineage should
Hmm.
not hold you back from progressing in society.
Hmm.
That's what
Hmm.
capitalism borrows.
Okay. Okay. We're gonna have to pick it up next time there, bro, because I want to talk about that. The whole, that capitalism and socialism and communism are both actually rooted in Christianity. And that pretty much, because Rene Girard says that, I mean, it's not just him who says that. It's like, people who study political anthropology and philosophy and everything are very much aware of that, that political movements are really nothing short of just a hyper focus on something within the Christian within the Christian message. But
Yeah.
yeah, let's pick it up there, bro. Let's talk about that next time, you know?
All right. Yeah.
Yeah.
Would love
Yeah.
to.
All right, man. Thanks for joining me again, bro.
Yeah.
All
Me
right.
too. Yeah. Let's do this again. Yeah.
All right, brother.